think the more challenging would not knowing what the intake was going to be and making sure we were prepared for that. If, let's say, we got 120 applications versus 500 applications, the time to process that, go through that, we'd have to have some lottery that had some good public vetting process to say who gets one and who doesn't. So that would be the unknown time factor with that process, but we would try to get it done as soon as possible.
Must it be lottery? I think Shelley raised the point of first in line, first in time, first in line. Has that been applied elsewhere in California or the other states?
Some jurisdictions have done a first in, and you have jurisdictions that said on a certain day whoever's in line first, gets number one versus number two. I could see that being as problematic because we do that on a certain day in CDA. That would really disrupt our other operations, and I think you'd actually have folks camping out potentially overnight. So,
well, I think she meant though. I mean, for those cultivators who have been doing so for a long time, although I don't know how you would find out how long that time might be, but assuming you could.
Establishing a fair and impartial criteria on how somebody was doing it longer than somebody else and rating that is definitely not something I'd want to put my staff in a position to evaluate.
Okay.
Well, I think because you've really constricted the number of folks who are going to apply, because anybody who's growing over 25 plants in 20 acres and 12 and 16 plants, I mean, I'm not even sure 12 or 16 plants is going to return their investment for this year. So I'm not even sure they're going to apply. But I would think that you wouldn't put a cap of 100. You just whatever you got, because I don't think there's going to be. Once they see what the cost is going to be, they may just say it's not worth it. But we're going to wait till the EIR is done and go forward next year. I don't know. My guess is some will be able to move some of their product this year, but and maybe they'll store it all for next year and wait till they get the whole permit process done, and you then get in. I don't know, but I don't think you need to put a 100 cap on it now. That wouldn't change the EIR, would it? I mean, it wouldn't make a difference on this one.
Are you talking about the permanent or the temporary?
Temporary.
We include, without changing the parameters as county council talked about, I don't think that would trigger anything with the CEQA as long as you're within the number.
It's all about risk. It really is. It's just about the more permits you allow, the more commercial growing you would be allowing, the greater the potential for a risk. That's all.
So I just want to clarify, if we did the temporary license using the existing ordinance, it would include everything in the existing ordinance, not just what you put up here.
Right. That's why I brought it.
Right? So
Yeah.
that's going to include this 12 plants that
12 and 16.
on,
On 12 plants, 16 plants on 10 to 20,
okay,
25 plants on 20 acres. It's everything that's in there.
everything that's in here.
That's just a range that I put on the slide.
Yeah.
So we would take the existing ordinance and just put the commercial piece in there.
And add a temp permit provision to it.
So on the table here, we're looking at the last column, correct?
No, it's the third to last column.
No, you're looking at the third
July 2016.
to last column.
Okay,
correct.
gotcha.
I'm sensing that this board wants to go forward with a temporary permit. Yes?
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Right, I heard a yes.
4 yeses and an okay.
So at this time, we were hoping for a short break so we can
Yes.
gather our summation together.
Short break, and then we'll wait to hear a summary from you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right, Lisa. All right, we'll call this meeting back to order, and I'll turn this over to Amanda or Sean, one of you.
Thank you, Chair
Amanda.
Schofield. At this point, we'd like to just run through quickly a list of a summation of what we've accomplished here today, which is a great many good things. The agreed decision points are as follows. There's a decision to allow a minimum parcel size for personal use in ag, AE, AG, FR, and TPZ of 2 acres. That was the acreage decided on today. You allowed to have a personal use plant count in addition to current cultivation, commercial cultivation limits. You provided for non-remuneration of up to 5 qualified individuals of 500 square feet per patient. They were required to comply with commercial cannabis cultivation regulations such as zoning. We decided on a sensitive site definition that took out the school bus stop and school evacuation sites, so it would include school, church, park, child care center, youth-oriented facility. We decided not to have a registration process for personal use cultivation. And you decided to allow transport of cannabis off of a cultivation site by a cultivator if they have the proper transportation and distribution license from the state. You set permit limits, limit an individual or entity up to 3 cultivation permits, and we are going to return to you for further discussion regarding the financial interest piece of that and possibly come up with alternative solutions for that. You decided to allow setback easements and variances, including a variance for reduced setbacks by up to 40%, to allow setback easements using adjacent parcels, and to allow variances for accessory structures as well as outdoor grows. You also allowed to a modification upon application of a setback from a state or federal park, no less than 300 feet to adjacent inaccessible and unimproved state and federal parks. We're going to clarify the inaccessible and unimproved language to ensure that it includes no trails or buildings and that it's truly inaccessible by people. We're also going to review the cooperative agreements for the state and federal issues to make sure that we have consistency with those particular entities. You also allowed for a transition period of 2 years for structures not used for cannabis activities and for permitted structures that are being converted to cannabis activities. As far as the changes in enforcement, you agreed with the suggested enforcement penalties as proposed. We are removing the restriction on firearms on commercial cultivation sites, and you agreed to the tiered commercial cultivation in AG, AE, and FR, 2 to 5 acres, indoors only, 500 square feet. 5 to 10, any combination, 2,500 square feet canopy. 10 to 20, any combination, 5,000 square foot canopy, and over 20 acres, any combination of a 10,000 square foot canopy.
They should be 2 to 4.99, 5 to 9.99, so that's how the zoning is.
Yeah, your clarification's well taken. Supervisor Western, it's actually greater than 2 acres, greater than 2 acres up to 5 acres, greater than 5 acres up to 10 acres, greater than 10 acres up to 20 acres, and over 20 acres is the 10,000 square foot. And we're going to be coming back with an urgency ordinance to allow temporary permits in AG, AE, and FR as outlined by staff. We'll be bringing that urgency ordinance back on May 22nd. And that is the summation we have.
Can you go back to the first one, the first agreement? Minimum parcel size for personal use, 2 acres. Is that outdoors?
Yes.
So we're okaying outdoors at 2 acres at AG, AE, FR, TPZ. And then, but the other one,
We've had this discussion.
We've had this discussion, Hank.
okay. I really can, it's been brought up by a couple people, is that our acreage needs to be drop off at the 4.99, 9.99, et cetera, so that a parcel that's 10 acres gets the full amount over there. It's not up to 10.
And I'd raised that earlier on too, but we didn't have the discussion, the full discussion actually, so.
Is there a consensus on that? We can adjust the ordinance.
How is it defined within the CAG? Was it up to 10 or from 10 and above? for example. And what's been our past practice with regard to the other cannabis ordinances?
Historically, we've done 2 acres or less, greater than 2 acres up to 5 acres, greater than 5 acres up to 10 acres, greater than 10 acres up to 20 acres, and over 20 acres, so consistent with the proposal currently.
Well, this printout about how we break it down, breaks it down by .99. So it's real clear that a 5-acre parcel is here, not 5 acres, up to 5. So a 5-acre is either or, the way that just read.
Currently, it would be greater than 2 acres up to 5 acres, and then greater than 5 acres up to 10 acres. So the
But, okay, a 5-acre piece would be what?
currently would be under the greater than 2 up to 5 acres. The 5-acre parcel would fit into the lower level.
The CAG recommendations under other commercial activities talks about area, requiring minimal parcel sizes of 10 acres and 5 acres, not above 10 acres or above 5 acres, if that helps.
How would it work with the zoning ordinance? Because there's, I'm sure, interactions between the zoning ordinance and this.
Supervisor Andrew, I think the board would just need to give us some clarity on what their preference is on where that split point is.
Well, right now, if it's 5 acres, it's the higher level. It's a higher number.
Lower level.
Seems to me it's the
Right, so the
higher one.
2,500 square foot of canopy would not be until you're on a parcel of greater than 5 acres up to 10 acres. So for commercial cannabis cultivation, if you're on a parcel of greater than 2 acres up to 5 acres, it's indoor only, no outdoor cultivation. So at the 5-acre mark would be the indoor
Yeah.
only.
It makes just more sense to me to have it at the actual acre mark. That I think people are going to assume that when they're purchasing
many
property and
parcels
making
have been-
plans.
Is there an Ag 2 zone or an Ag 5 zone or an Ag 10 zone? And is that based upon 10 acres or or greater than 10 acres, and greater than 5 acres or greater
The
than
way it should read.
2 acres? So it's right at
At
5,
5.
up to 10, up to just below 10, and then 10 acres up to. That's what I think Heidi and Hank are recommending, right?
Yes, that is.
So is there consensus to make that adjustment in the ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, great. And then I feel like I'm missing, and maybe you're just making the assumption that going back and looking at the building code issue. I know you agreed verbally you were going to do that.
For the accessory structures, yes,
Yes.
thank you. Yes, we will be going back to look at that and adjusting the definition of
Okay.
accessory structure. Thank you
Okay.
for the reminder.
So if you have 5 acres now, you can now go to the higher number.
That's my understanding of the consensus. If that was the consensus, then yes. If you had a 5-acre, straight-up 5-acre parcel, you would be allowed to cultivate 2,500 square feet of canopy.
Was that the intent?
It's really a policy decision for the board, I'm afraid.
Well, if it's 5.1,
If you have 5 acres, you can go to the 2,500 canopy. Okay. Well, then we're going to do the 4.99. Okay.
Okay. That is all we have.
Thank you so much for putting this together. It was so much easier to follow through this way. Thank you. I just want to thank you all for all your staff time. This was a lot of work. We got a lot done.
and thank the public for their input, because we did think about it. We listened.
Thank you for your patience, and my thanks to the staff, too. All right. What'll we do this evening? Oh, Dan has a debate. Meeting adjourned.